Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Peter. Please consider subscribing to the channel and also liking the video if you have not done so. This helps the video to reach more people. So today we are going to be building the third part of our application, which is the side where we are going to build a UI to consume our server or to use what we have built from our server. So if you follow the video from the beginning, the first video, we set up our application. In the second video, we built the server, and in this third video, we are going to be building the client using the template engine. We're going to be using Pug. This is the UI that we are going to build, a very simple form that we are going to accept as subject. We are going to accept a list of emails separated by comma, and then a message, and then we have a send button. Once you click on the send button, we send the email. So if I come here and I enter hello, and I send to my email, a simple email, and I also add a message that I'm just going to say hello world, and then I click on send. So it's sending the email, and it says email sent. So there are a lot of validation. So if I click now without typing anything, you're going to see a list of errors come up as I go down. So I'm going to be building this in continuation of our project. Now, if you want to get the finished product, you can go to github.com, and the link will be in the video. And then you go. We have 4 branches. You are going to go to just click on main and click on client. Once you click on client, you are on the branch that contains everything that has to do with our client. So, and then you clone it. You can just click on code, and you see different ways that you can clone. You can download zip, use HTTPS, open a GitHub desktop, and many more. So once you do that, then you're ready for us to start building. So we are going to set up template engines in order to be able to render our HTML that will come from our server. So we need to set up template engine. To start, we are going to be using Pug. So if you don't know Pug is just like EJS, like handlebars, like Parag.js. It just has its own way. It's kind of similar to HTML, just how you write your HTML, but the syntax is a bit different. With Pug.js, you can do a lot of things. You can write if statements, you can loop, you can just do like you're writing your normal JavaScript there. But even though we won't be using much of that, you can take a look at pug.js.org, and then you'll find documentation for Pug. You can read a lot of things you can do with Pug. So I'm going to show you how we use Pug. We'll be using Pug here in our Node application to do as our template engine. All right, so let's go and install the packages that we will be using for this particular part of our application. So we are going to install Pug. We are going to install Axios to make our request. We are also going to install Esbuild. So if you remember how we had to use TSC to compile our TypeScript in our Node server into JavaScript, we are going to do the same thing here for our static assets. But what we are going to use is Esbuild. So we are going to use Esbuild to compile our TypeScript into JavaScript. So Esbuild is very, very fast. We don't need to set up Webpack. Esbuild is easy to set. So I'm going to install these 3 packages. All right, now that we have these 3 packages installed in our application, we are going to go ahead and set up a template engine that we'll be using. So like I said, we'll be using Pug. So let's go back to our index.ts, and let's just go after the express or static. Let's add our view template engine there. Let's add that. Configure our view engine. So I have a comment, configure view engine. So I'm going to set view. So we are going to have a folder view called views, which is where our Pug file will live, our template engine will live, their files. So I'm going to say app.set, and we set the view engine. And what view engine are we using? We are going to say Pug. If you are using handlebars, if you are using Parag.js, if you are using EJS, you put it here. But I'm using Pug, so I'm going to have it. Now I have to create a folder. Let me just enlarge this. So I'm going to go back to my application now, and I'm going to create a folder outside here at the top level of the application folder. I'm going to say, call it views. Remember, the name we gave it here is views. So I'm going to say views. And I'm just going to have a single file here, which I'm going to call index.pug. Now let's declare a type. Say doc type HTML. So we have declared a HTML type now. Now, in Pug, you don't put any curly braces or whatever. So what we want to do, we want the HTML and the doc type to be at the same level. So we simply say HTML here. Now, anything you want to be inside this HTML as a child, we press tab and then we write it. So what do I want? I want the head to be inside here. Now, anything you want to be inside the head, you also press tab again because I want this thing to be inside the head. So I can say meta and I say asset is character set, and I want it to be UTF-8. So I've gone ahead to add the HTTP equiv, and then I've added the viewport and all that for us. So these things here, they are all inside the head, whereas the head is inside the HTML. So this is how we write this with Pug. So let's say, what do we want to have? We need to have body. Now, body and head are in the same level. Both of them are inside the HTML. So I'm going to say body. Now, what do I want to have inside the body? I will just go down and I press on tab. So that's to show that this is inside the body. So let's just quickly write a simple thing here just to show this on the page. So let's say H2. Now I want to write a text. I just give space and I write. Let's say, welcome to Pug. And then I forgot something here. Go back to the head and let's add a title. So I say title, we'll call it NodeJs email sender. So with this now, when we run this application, we should have this render. But first of all, let's configure our index.ts a route. Let's configure a route that will do that. So we want when somebody goes to our index, in the index of application, we want to show the Pug file. So say app.get. If you just go to slash, which is our index, we want to render the Pug. So we're going to say res, where I forgot to pass in here, res, which is rec, which is request, and res, which is response. I'm going to say res dot render. So dot render is for rendering a file, and I'm going to pass the file name, which is simply index. So if you look at here, we have index.pug. So we are saying render that for us, that particular file. If you have any other file, you can pass that there. You can even pass information here. Maybe you want to give it a title, you can just come here and pass value and say title is, let's say, Node, let's say welcome to Node.js. You can pass a title like this, and then you can go back to the Pug and read the title. So if I want to read the title, I can just pass like this and I say title. So I don't have to type title from here. So if I save now, and let's start our server. So we say yarn dev. Okay, our server is ready. Let's go to localhost 5000 and see what we have. So I go to localhost 5000 sender. So that is now our title. Okay, so we will now go ahead to create every other thing that we need on the page here. Go ahead to help us create the items that we'll be needing per page. It's a very simple HTML page. So we have in our body, we have main. Main has a class of container. So if you want to add a class in Pug, you use period. So dot container here simply means that this is a class of container. If I add pound symbol or hash, it's going to be an ID of container. So when I say main.container, it simply means that main, if you're writing this is your normal HTML, it's going to be main class equal to container. Then you close main. So this is the equivalent of this in your HTML. So I'll remove that. Now we have two divs inside the main. So like I said, that the two divs are at the same level because they are both siblings. Now we have the first one, we'll call it left, because I want to divide the whole page into two. So when we divide the whole page into two, we'll have then one of them we have an image. So we have an image tag and it has a class of left underscore image because it's at the left. And then I have added an image in our asset. If you go to us public asset, you see email underscore messenger. Now I got that SVG from undraw.co. So if you want to find out where, you can just go to undraw here.co and then you can click on browse and then you have many SVGs. You can export as SVG or PNGs. You can also change the color from here. You can pick the color that you want. So that's where I pick the image from. Now, go back here. So that's where this image from. And then in the second div, inside the main container, we now have call it right. I just want to split the page into left and right. So here we have a H2 that has a class of title and simply says email sender. So I can pass, I think I have to pass a hash here. Let's see. If I save this, so we have to pass a hash here, hash symbol. I forgot that, even though it actually worked. So that is the title. Then we have a H2 that has a class of title here. Then we have a form. Now the form, we have a form that has a class of form as container. I don't need any action, so I'm going to remove this. It doesn't really have any action. Now inside the form, we have a label that has a class of label, and it is for subject. It has a text of enter subject. We have input field that has a class of input. I'm sorry, subject. And then it has an ID of subject. The reason why I have an ID of subject is because I want to match what this label has. It has a type of text. The placeholder is enter subject. Now we have another input that's input that it has a class of recipients. And then I don't think I'm actually using this, so I'm going to remove this one here. And I'm also going to remove this ID. I don't need it. So we have another one that says recipients as a class, and it has a type of email, and it has placeholders. And then we have text area that has a class of message and a placeholder that says enter your message. Then we have a button that has a class of btn and a type of submit. Then we have a span. Now this span is inside the button. As I see, there is a space here with our tab span send, which has send to it. So this is all that we have here in our POG file. So I'm going to save. Now if I go back and I refresh again, you'll see that the image pops up. Now the text are not showing because the text are below. So if you look at it now, we have node email sender, and we have enter subject. We have these two input field, text area, and the send button. So let me go back here and actually fix this guy and say node email sender. So I can just go back to the title and reuse it here. So I'm just going to say hash title pound symbol title. And if I refresh, I don't have to type that anywhere. If I save, we now have that here. We also have it at the top here, the top of the screen. All right then. So what we now have to do is, this is not how we want our application to look. Let's style the application. So in order to style, we go to the public folder and we create a folder called CSS. And I'm going to create a CSS file called main.css. So let me go back to my POG and import that file. So how do we import? We're just going to say link, if you remember how to import in your CSS. And I'm going to say relationship is style sheet. Then after that, we say that we have the type is of text / CSS. Don't really think that's necessary. Then we'll say href. Where is this going to be found? I'm going to say /css/main.css. So you don't need to be saying, you don't need to add public and all that, because remember we configured our Express application to look at the public folder for our static files. So with that, I need to save. You don't have this save. And let's go to our CSS. First of all, we are going to give a generic style. So we want to reset everything. We're saying margin 0, padding 0. We're going to say scroll behavior of smooth so that it doesn't snap around the screen. We're also going to say box sizing to be border box. So we save this now, and then everything should be reset. Let's check. So if I hit refresh, now everything has been reset. So let's go back and finish up our styling. Right, so what I've done is this. I've gone ahead to create these CSS variables for us. So if you remember, if you want to create a CSS variable, because you need reusability, you just add the root. That's the very thing at the top. You add the root, and then we say dash dash primary. This is our primary color. Dash dash secondary, another color. That's the accent. Our sources, what color we want to display on sources, and then on error, and then we have a light gray. So we are able to reuse this color. Now what I've done is I selected HTML and body. I gave it a position of relative, width of 100%, a height of 100%, max width 1440 pixels. I said overflow is hidden. Then we gave the body a background color of primary. So if you want to consume it, the root, whatever you have added here configurations, you say var, then open bracket dash dash the name that you gave it. So here we gave it a primary. We are using primary here. We gave it a primary color here. Then we are using accent here for the color of the text. All right. Then we selected the container, which is just the main. This main here, which are the class of container. We select it. We say it should be display flex, and align items to be flex starts. So it starts from the beginning. Then we move on to select this title here. So we left the left div already. We selected this title here. DH2 has this title, and then we styled it. We gave it a text align of center, font weight of 600, font size 2 rem, color var dash secondary. So these are just the colors that we wrote there in our root, so that we can reuse it everywhere without having to keep retyping the color all the time. We gave it a margin top. Then we selected the left div. We gave it a height of 100 VH. We wanted to take up the whole height. Then we gave it a width of 50%, so it's taking half of the screen. Also, again, we told it to display flex, align item to the center, and justify center. So this will put the image in the center. Then we selected the image and told it, which is dot left underscore image. We said the image should take a width of 50% and a height of auto. So it's taking half of the parent. Then we selected the right, the div that is right, which is the div, this div here that contains all this. And we said the div should have a height of 100 VH, take up the whole height, take us a width of 50%, which is just half the screen. And we gave it a background color that is different from the one we gave to the left. And then we selected the form container itself, the form container, which is this one here. So the form container, we gave it a margin 2 rem, display flex direction to be column, want everything to stack below the other. Then we selected the subject and the recipient, which are just input field. And then again, stylings, line height, border bottoms, and other. So I'm kind of rushing through this because the focus here is not the CSS. The focus is on how we connect this with our POG, and then how they interact together with our server application that's running already. All right, so we have a focus, and then we have a placeholder, what we want to do, and also want to add we added a little of transition. Then this is the message, which is the text area. We also gave some border radius, border color, but so that you cannot resize horizontally, you must resize vertically. That's why I added this tag here. And then we style the button, give the button a few styling with a huge box shadow, then also a transition. And then the span, the button span, the span that is inside the button, which is this span here. What we did is that we gave it a cursor of pointer display to be inline, operation to be relative, we give it a transition of 0.4 seconds. Then we are doing a simple pseudo styling, which is simply by saying after we want to add a mail. So what we want to do is that when you hover on this, we want to show this span, this content here that simply says mail. And we position it absolute. Then we use top and right to put it in a place where you cannot see it until you hover on it. And that is what enables you when you hover to be able to see this. So initially we only see send. When you hover, you then see send mail. All right. So that is for the hover for after. It just helps us to make sure you see it. So initially here we say right is minus 20 pixels, which just takes it off. You don't see anything. Then when you hover on it, we give it a right of 0, which now enables you to see this mail here. All right. So that is that for us. Let's take a look at what we have already. So if I refresh this now this is what we have. We have a nice looking UI set ready to go for us. So if I hover now, you see the send mail appear. Now I have also added responsiveness. I'm not going to get into that. You can just go down and look at the code. So this is very, very responsive, very, very responsive for you. So you can go back and read the rest of the CSS. Now let's get back to the other things that we need to do. Now that we have these things ready, we need to set up the JavaScript part that's going to handle taking this input and communicating with our server. I'm going to go ahead to go to the public folder and create another folder inside there. I'm going to call it JS, which is going to be a JavaScript folder. Now, what we are going to have here, we are going to say, we're going to have, let's call it, to avoid clashing with our server index.ts. So main.ts. So now, our TypeScript cannot be run on the browser. Obviously, we can't run our TypeScript on the browser. So we need a way that this our TypeScript that we're going to write in this our static files, we need it to be compiled down to JavaScript. And if you remember, we installed a package called Esbuild. Esbuild is going to help us to do that. Esbuild is going to help us to compile our TypeScript into JavaScript for the client. So we need to go into our package.json and set up Esbuild. So we are going to set up Esbuild in two ways. We want to set up one for watching. So we want to watch the file. So in this case, we don't have to come back every time to run it. Once we run it, it keeps waiting. Just like we set up NodeMon for our TypeScript, for our Node application to be watching for us. So anytime we save, it automatically compiles again. We are going to set up the same thing for Esbuild. So let's go to the script side, and after the start, let's add another script called watch. So it's going to watch. And then what do we want to do here for it? We are going to give Esbuild some commands to do. How do we tell Esbuild to compile down to JavaScript? We are simply saying Esbuild. What do we want to do? So this is just Esbuild command. We are going to say Esbuild --watch. Now we're only adding the --watch option because we want it to watch the file, so that each time we save anything there is going to watch it. We're also going to say --bundle. We simply say telling it to bundle the file, and then we are going to pass the path where the file is that we want it to bundle. So our file is located in public/js. So we are going to say ./public/js. So we want you to bundle all the files inside this place. But another thing we need to do for Esbuild is that we need to tell it where it's going to put this file. Just like we did for our TypeScript, we told it where to put the file. So I'm going to say --out file, which is simply where are you going to, I think it should be like this. Where are you going to output this file when you bundle it? So we're going to say, put it inside ./public/js/bundle.js. What we have done here is that we have taken everything that we have inside our JavaScript folder, and we have told Esbuild to bundle everything and pass everything inside a single file, which is going to be called bundle.js. So by the time we run Esbuild watch, we would have a single file called bundle.js, which Esbuild has helped us to compile all our TypeScript into JavaScript there. So we have an output. Now we have to set up another one for building. But for us to do that, we need to go and modify the build script we had earlier here. The build script we have here. So we have to modify it to build for also our static files before we even build for the node part. So we're going to go back and say Esbuild, just like we did before. So we say Esbuild, but this time around we're going to say minify. So we want it to minify whatever is building. We want it to take out all unnecessary items that we have there. And we are going to say --bundle. So after you minify, you bundle it. So make sure you minify, Then just like we did earlier for the watch, we are going to say everything in our public/js, and it's going to ask us where do you want me to put it. I'm going to say --out file, and then it's going to be ./public. It's just equivalent to watch. It's just that instead of the watch flag, we have --minify /js/bundle.js, and we have to pass in and here. So this simply means that this command, let me just close this. This command is going to finish running. So it's going to build our client TypeScript. Then it goes ahead to build the one for Node. So that is what we are going to do. So that is to say, even if we are in production and we run yarn run build, it's going to take care of doing all these things for us. So with this now, we have set up Esbuild ready to go. Let me just bring this build down to be after the watch. Up everything now ready to go. So now we can compile our client TypeScript down to JavaScript, and we can also compile our node down to JavaScript. So let's get to it. Let's get back to it. So what do we want to do? Let's test it out first. So inside my main.ts, I'm going to write, let's just create a simple function, and let's see if our JavaScript, let's say hello. So it's going to say hello, and it's going to take a string. It's going to take a name that is a string, and we are going to say console.log name. So let us pass hello name, hello to the name, hello space. So I'm going to call the function down here and pass a name. So I'm going to say John. So if I save now, it's there. Now we need this to compile to compile down to JavaScript. So let's go to our terminal. I'm going to kill the terminal by pressing Ctrl C, and I'm going to run yarn watch. So if I run that, let me could not resolve /public. Okay, I think we let me try this again. I don't know what's wrong. It's supposed to watch. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is let me expand this. It's saying that it cannot locate my public/js. So what I'm going to do is I would add the file itself here. So I'm going to say /main.cs. Since I know that this is the entry file for the client and every other file I might create will be imported here, or the files that we'll be needing will be imported here. So I'm going to pass this here, and I have to also update this one for here. I have to also say main.ts. So I'm going to pass a specific file instead of just saying go here and do that. So let's take a look and see if this solves the problem. So I clear yarn watch, and it seems to solve the problem. So it has built successfully and is now watching for file changes, just like we said. So just like our server, when it runs, it's using NodeMon, it waits for any file changes to compile down. So this one also is also watching and waiting for any file change. So let's go to, let me decrease this guy. All right, so let's go to here. If you look down, now see a bundled.js, which is what we gave it to, the instruction we gave it. So if you click on bundle.js, you see the function that I wrote, this function here, this is function say hello. It has been compiled down to JavaScript. And you also say, okay, this is coming from this file, and then we have the function here compiled down to JavaScript. So that is that. And now if you look at the file very well, see how it is. Let's build and let's see how it's going to be. So I'm going to run yarn build, which is going to also build for our node server and also build for this one. Just look at it, we'll compare this, we'll compare what we have now. Just have a mental memory of this so that we can compare. So I'm going to go back here, kill the server, and say yarn build. So it has built both for Node, it is done building. I'm going to save to format it. And well, nothing really much because this is not much yet, but at least you can see there's kind of a difference between this and what we have. Now we have function hello, console.log hello plus hello. Yeah, so it's kind of a bit all right then, but by the time we write more code, the build on will be more minified, and then we'll see that in place. So now we know that our JavaScript will come out in bundle.js. So once we put our JavaScript, it's going to come in bundle.js. So we now need to run let me terminate this, two terminals. I'm going to open another terminal here. I'm going to say bash. I'm going to go into my desktop, node. So one of them will be running our node server, which is going to simply be yarn dev. And the other one will be running the Esbuild for our application. So we are going to say yarn watch. If you put them together, it's not going to work because once one of them runs, then it will prevent the other one from running. So if this one runs first, then NodeMon will not be allowed to run to show this. So now the two of them are out. This is listening on port 5000. Server ready to take our messages. This is from our email. And then this is helping us to compile down our JavaScript, our TypeScript into JavaScript. So let's get back. Let me just save, even though we'll get rid of that at the end of the day. So let me just delete this. And also let me delete the build. So now what do we want to do? Let's get to our JavaScript part now. Not the server, we're not talking about the client side. So what we're going to start off with is, let's start off with selecting the fields in our POG file. All right, so I've gone ahead here. Let me just open this, split this up. So create an enum. So I have this enum here because I want to be able to show kind of an alert. It's going to look like an alert, but we'll create that ourselves. We're not going to use the JavaScript default alert. So what I want to do is this enum here is enum of type, and it's saying that I declared it, but I'm not using it anywhere. I don't worry about these errors here. They are all coming from ESLint. It's telling me I have variables that are declared but not used anywhere. So we have a type of error and a type of sources because I want to use them somewhere. So this button here is the submit button. This message is our text area. The recipients are just inputs for you to put emails, and then subjects are your email subject. So they are of type HTML input. We are forecasting them here to match that, because if we just write document request related to subject, if we try to perform some operation, TypeScript will not be able to know whether they are input elements or not. So we have to specifically say these are input elements, this is a text area, and this is a button. So what we're going to do, we're going to say btn.add event listener. So we're going to add an event listener, and we're going to listen for a click event. So once this button is clicked, which is if we go to the page and you click on this send button here, then we know you have submitted. So we're going to say, we're going to pass an arrow function that has E. E is going to be of mouse event because it's a mouse event on click. I'm sorry. So first of all, we don't want the page to refresh. So we're going to say prevent default. So we don't want the page to refresh. Now, before we move on, I want us to create a simple, let me delete this again. When I saved it, this and then have it there. So I'm going to create a simple function that will display either success message or error. I'm going to call it a show alert. So I'm going to go to the JS folder inside my public, and I'll create a folder. I'll call it util or utilities. I say utils. And then here I'm going to create a file. I'm going to go show-alert.ts. I'm going to say, let's create a function, export const hide alert. So this one will be to remove the alert if the alert is already on the page, and it's not going to take any parameter. So I'm going to say const elements is equal to, we want to select elements document dot query selector. Now we are not even, we're just checking if there's an element called alert. It's going to be a div, so we don't really care. We just want to check if we have an element called alert on the page. So if we have it, so we say if we have this element, that's a class of alert, what do we want to do? We will say that we want to remove that. So say parent element. We are putting optional chaining here, probably we don't have it, and we say remove child. So if that exists, remove child, whatever it's hanging on, because we are going to put it on the body. So we're just saying the element parent, which is going to be body, remove it. The next thing, we're also going to create another function, and we'll call this one show alert. So this is the one that is going to actually display the alert. Now we have to accept some parameters here. We are going to accept type, and this is where I was talking about the error and the sources. What is the type? So we are going to say is a string. So we have type of sources or type of error. Then we're going to also take a message. What message do you want to pass? Which is also going to be a string. What error message or what sources message? We're also going to take a time, which is going to be a number. So how long do you want this to show in the browser? You specify that for us. So first of all, immediately you call this function, we want to hide alert. So let's just assume you have anything, we want to hide it. So that is what we are doing first of all. Then after that, we are going to create a markup that will insert into the page. So we're going to say we have a div, but let's create a div. And this div is going to have a class of, so it's going to have a class of alert. Now, it's also going to have a class of alert type, but that type is going to come from from whoever is calling this particular function. So we're going to say alert, and then the type is going to come from here. So what if you pass a type of error, it's going to be alert-error. If you pass a type of source, it's going to be alert-sources. So what are we going to do? We now also go here and display whatever message you pass in. So we say MSG, then we close the div. Now we have created our markup, but we also need to insert it into the page. So let's select the body. We want to put it the body. So we say document dot query selector, and we are just going to say body. So it's not a class. Just going to select the body, and then we are going to check, do we have body? say if body, if we do have, that means we have the body already. We want to say body dot insert adjacent HTML. So, and where do we want to insert it? We just want to insert it after the body starts. So we have many after begin, before begin, after end, before end. But we want to insert it after the body begins. So we want to insert that, and then what element do we want to start? The markup. So we pass our HTML here that we want to insert. So once we do that, we then say window dot set timeout. So I'm using set timeout to calculate how long it's going to stay before we remove it. So we are going to say hide alert. So we are calling this function once the number of seconds has passed. So we're going to pass time times 1000. So if you pass in your time, if you pass 2, that will be 2000. If you pass 3, that will be 3000. So after whatever number of time that you have passed, then we'll call the hide alert function, and then it's going to remove this from the DOM. Let me see why this is being highlighted. Okay, body is never reassigned. Please use const. So it's forcing me to use const. That's ESLint there. Okay, so this is what we now have. So we have this function that will help us to create alert on the page on the fly and remove alert on the page on the fly. Now I will go back to my CSS. Now I have already added the styling for the alert. So if you see here alert, so we are giving it a position of fixed. Top is 0, so I want it to be at the very top. Left is 50%, and then we are doing a translate to make it become centered on the x-axis horizontally. Then we give it a z-index, a huge z-index to be above everything. We give it a color of, for the text color, accent. We give it a font size, and then we do some curve, border bottom, border left radius, and all that. Give it a padding and a box shadow. The background color, we don't actually have to put this here. Let me remove that. Now, if you look at this, this is where the type come in place. So if you pass in alert, okay, I need to put dash dash, not dash. See dash dash here. Yeah. So if you pass in alert dash dash sources, the background color is going to be our sources. If you pass in a type of error, our background color is going to be the type of error. Remember our root here, where we declare these variables that we will be reusing since. All right, so that is that for alert. Now let's go back to our code here. So we have selected everything here. Let's import the alert function. So say import show alert. So we are importing show alert from utils/show alert, and it's complaining that we have not used that. So let's use it then. All right, so before we even get to using this, let's validate. We know we have emails here. Let's create a function that will validate the email for us. If you remember in our index in our node server that we are creating, we created a file to validate email for us. So we could actually reuse this file here. We just take it and go back to our utils and then have the same file there to validate emails. So we have this file here also that will help us to validate email in our client TypeScript. So all these things will actually be compiled down to JavaScript by Esbuild for us in the client. So let's go back to here and let's also import that. So we're going to say import validate email in from /utils/validate email. So we now have this to validate our email for us. All right, let's get down to the work. All right, so what we are doing now is this. So first of all, we are validating the input that we are getting. So we are checking for the subject, we are checking the value and we are trimming it, and we are checking if the length is less than 1, that means we don't have anything there, and we are throwing an error that says the error is of type the error. So we are passing the type as error, and we are passing the message which simply says please provide the subject. I want it to stay for 4 seconds, so we pass 4. So if that is good, and then we return. So if you have an error, we simply return. We don't go to check the next one, we just return immediately. We are checking the second one. We say if recipients the value of length is less than 1. Remember recipients, if it is less than 1, we also throw an error saying please provide 1 or more recipients, and we also want you to stay for 4 seconds, then we return. Now if you do not have any error and we get to this point, we need to split the recipients, because the recipients is going to come comma separated. So I'm going to have the first email comma, the second email comma. So I want to now make them all to be alone. So what we are doing is this: we create this variable get recipients, and it's going to be an array of strings, and we're going to say if recipients the value the length is 1. So if you only have 1 item, we just want to pass it into this as an array, so we have only 1. But if we do not have only 1, we have more than 1, we want to split by the comma. So we split that. Now we are passing this filter function here. So in case somebody just goes to our page and then he types, for example, let me show you. Somebody types here and says johndoe@gmail.com, then ask comma without typing anything again, and then press say send. So that is why we have to filter. So we then say filter, make sure that it is not empty. So if somebody types that what we have there and press send, when it comes to this place, if we split by the comma, we are going to have two elements. But those two elements, only one of them has an item in it. The second one doesn't have any item in it. So that is why you have to filter here, and we're just going to pass in the value, and we say filter out any value that is empty. So that is that. Now we create another variable here called email recipients. So these are where we're now going to have the recipients of the email, and it is going to contain an email of string, an array of strings, and it right now is currently defaulted to string, to an empty array. So we're now going to loop, just like we did loop in our server code. We're also looping our client code. We are checking starting from 0 to whatever we got back in our recipient, whether it's just one element or two or more. And we're going to say if we validate it and it is false, we are trimming it off. So if we validate it and it is false, we throw an error and we tell you that, oh, this particular email is not valid. It's not a valid email address. So let me make this become 4. So all this happens even before you get to the server. You don't even go to the server yet. We are doing all this check on the client side, and then we return. So once we get any of that, we return. Now if we don't have any error, we then push all the elements into the email recipients. So we push them, no matter how many they are, we push all of them. But once we get an error, we return and stop. We throw an error and stop executing the loop. Then after that, we check for missing message. Maybe you have filled everything, but you didn't type anything in the message. Now, because the message is a text area, we have to trim, because automatically it doesn't trim. If we remove this trim and say message the value, the length, it's going to keep passing, even though there's nothing there. So you have to trim it to make sure that we don't have any spaces. So if you have nothing, you show you this alert of error and say, okay, let's just turn this to 40. So we wait for 4 seconds and then we return. So once you have been able to go through all this and you are safe and it's fine, then we have to now call our API. So let's import Axios, because we will be using Axios to do that. So import Axios from Axios. So let's get down to that. So what I want to do now is, if you get at that point, if you get to this point, we want to say that btn, which is the button, .inner.html, we want to change the text to say sending. So you will see that, okay, it has started sending your mail. So let me just put a comment, say send mail to server. All right. So now we have to use our try catch. So a quick try catch block here. And also, in this case, we're going to have finally, but let's start. So let's const response. Response is equals to await. So we are going to await. I think we have to go back and mark this as asynchronous here. So we're going to go back here to btn or add the button on click, and we say this is going to be async, so that we can use await there. So await axios.post. Remember, our URL is /email. Then what else do we want to do after posting? We have to pass in data. So we are going to say that the subject is going to be subject.value.trim. So we are trimming that off. Then we are going to say to is going to be email recipients. We have already formatted all that before we get to this point. And we're going to say message is going to be message.value.trim. So these are what we'll be sending back. Now, if everything goes well, we are going to say show alert, and the alert is going to be of type sources, and the message is going to simply be response.data. Remember, we are just sending a single item, which is simply email sent, and we want it to save for 4 seconds. And then we will just remove everything that whatever that has been typed here. We set it to empty. Then message the value, we set it to empty. To the value, we also set it to empty. So it is to, not to string. So that is what we are doing. We are setting everything back to how they were originally. Then the next thing, if we have an error, we want to say show alert, and we're going to say it is of type error, and the message is going to just be the whatever we get from the error, which is simply going to be the error we threw from our server. We know how we formatted it, and that's why we are just doing it like this. Oh, sorry, error, not a string. If you are using maybe JSON or so, you have to format your error to be like that. So why is it saying an error? Cannot find name. Oh, I think it's recipients. Sorry, recipients. So this is going to be, yeah, that is correct. So we throw this error for you, and then we are going to add finally. So no matter what happened, whether it's an error or not, we want to put the button back to what it was originally, which is simply send.